Welcome to our presentation entitled Activities and Intervention for Early Childhood Classrooms. Our goal is to help you support social emotional learning and address challenging behaviors. We have a great deal of content to cover in a tight time frame, so let's get started. Today, we're going to introduce the concept of an emotional backpack, review the reasons why our students behave the way they do, discuss the importance of data collection to determine appropriate interventions, and then explore 10 techniques to address challenging behaviors while building student social emotional skills. As we know, routines are the backbone of a preschool program. Typically, our day begins by greeting students wearing their backpacks that may hold a snack, folder, or even a communication book. But have you ever heard of carrying an emotional backpack? This concept refers to the daily stress, beliefs, and experiences our students and staff carry to school. Maybe their family's experiencing financial issues, food insecurity, housing issues, loss of a loved one, domestic abuse, or illness. Each burden is like a rock in an emotional backpack that can weigh students down, impacting their social emotional development, behavior, and capacity to learn. So, how can we help students lighten their load and prepare them for the school day? First, let's be curious. Pay attention to our students' emotional states. When something changes and seems off, let's ask ourselves why and try to engage the child or the caregiver to find out more. Check in regularly. When we know a student is struggling, don't hover, but make it a point to monitor how they're doing. Ask in the right way. Use I statements versus you statements. Asking, "What's wrong with you?" can make a student become defensive or shut down. Instead, let's try something like, "Something seems different today. Can I help?" Monitor your tone and body language. Keep it neutral. Try not to appear upset or frustrated, and avoid sarcasm, which can make things worse. Teach emotional regulation strategies like deep breathing, using a calming corner in the room, or even redirection. Be sure to practice regulation strategies as a group when the classroom is calm. We collect a great deal of information about our students through our observations. This is how we learn about their personal strengths, interests, preferences, motor and academic skills, and areas for growth. These anecdotal records often become the data we need to determine appropriate interventions for each child. However, this process can be tedious and challenging in an active preschool environment. Even with the best of our intentions, it's hard to remember exactly what each student accomplished that day. Here are some practical tips to ease the process. First, since our documents must be easily accessible while managing the classroom, consider hanging little clipboards above the reach of our students in various areas. An adult in the room can grab a small clipboard to record student progress toward their goals, like speaking in a 3-word sentence or taking turns without prompting. A second method is to use a large index card for each child. Write their name in the bottom left corner and then tape them onto a large clipboard. They should overlap, but keep the name showing. There's a photo of this technique on the screen. The clipboard is portable and easy to use when observing in the classroom or assessing skills. When the student card is full, just drop it in their file or their portfolio and tape on another in its place. Remember, our documentation should always be written objectively. This means writing down observable actions only, like quotes, descriptions of a behavior or facial expressions, or performance. Please avoid using adjectives or labels like good and bad, assuming their intention, like the student did this because, or he was angry because, making judgments or giving your opinion, and using absolutes like he always does this or he never does that. Our little ones often have delayed speech and language, but that doesn't mean they aren't communicating. Their behavior is a language. Our kiddos are communicating with us through their actions. So let's look at why our students behave the way they do. If we know the function of their behavior or the reason, then we can decipher what they're trying to say. So there are 4 functions of behavior, and we can remember them with this phrase, everybody eats. EATS. E stands for escape, or to avoid something they don't want. A is for attention. because they want to gain access to someone or get their attention. T stands for tangible, to get something that they want. And S stands for sensory, to stimulate a good feeling or stop a sensation that feels bad. This chart gives us examples of child behavior for each category, when it is likely to happen in the classroom, and some practical strategies on how to respond. For example, under the tangible category, we see that a child can tantrum to get access to something they want. When does this happen? Well, we know it's fairly common in a preschool classroom because they may want a snack or a toy or a specific colored crayon. As far as how to respond, if we give in to the tantrums, it teaches our children that this behavior is an effective way to get what they want. So please do not give in to the tantrum. Wait until the child settles, then teach him or her how to make the request appropriately. Because time is tight, we have to move on from this slide, but feel free to revisit it for other appropriate responses to other challenging behaviors when you have some more time. We've explained how all student behavior has a function or a reason. Our kiddos are trying to tell us something without knowing how to communicate appropriately. Unfortunately, it can be hard to understand what they're trying to say, especially when their behavior is so very challenging and disruptive in class. For us to shape their actions into something more acceptable, we need to translate their behavior and figure out why the student is acting this way. What is the function of their behavior? Sometimes this process is simple, especially with older kids. We can just ask and they may tell us. But our little ones have difficulty expressing themselves, so the process can be more complex and requires a bit more analysis. Rather than looking only at the behavior in isolation, using an ABC format allows us to look at the full picture. This slide represents what we call the ABCs of behavior. A stands for antecedent, or what happens before the behavior. B represents the behavior displayed in the moment, and C is the consequence, or what happens after the behavior. Observing behavior in a sequential format can help. Preschool classrooms are busy places. Whenever possible, take time to document the student behavior on an ABC chart like this one. It's important to write down the antecedent because there was something that triggered that student's behavior, and it may have happened immediately before the behavior started. We also want to include the consequence or response to the behavior. What did the staff do? When did the behavior stop? How long did it last? Including the date and the time of the event can be helpful when looking for a potential pattern of the behavior. I worked with one student who acted out before writing time every day. We quickly realized that holding a crayon and writing the first letter in his name was tough for him, and he was frustrated. And his misbehavior was a way to try to avoid that part of the day. Once the data has been collected and reviewed, our team can figure out the intended function of the behavior and determine appropriate intervention to prevent the behavior from reoccurring. Then we provide support and explicitly teach a new, more appropriate replacement behavior. And to maintain consistency, we must take time to train other teachers and paraprofessionals on how to respond to the student's behavior. Communication and keeping everyone on the same page really helps with consistency. The more predictable and consistent our classroom environment is, the more comfortable our students will be. So let's talk about 10 specific strategies to use with our kiddos. The cause and effect relationship is a key aspect of learning for preschool-age children. Through this dynamic, our kiddos realize that their actions impact the world around them. So our response to student behavior will determine if it continues, worsens, or improves. With this in mind, review strategies for addressing challenging behavior while building social-emotional skills. First, when a child exhibits challenging behavior, do not visibly react. Yes, we may have a swirl of emotions inside, but outwardly, we must appear calm and in control. Remember the cause-effect dynamic. If we give them a big reaction, they may attempt to continue and even escalate the dynamic to gain our attention. Then other kiddos may try to get the attention the same way. We want to direct our attention to positive behavior. So keep a relaxed facial expression, maintain a neutral body language, and use a calm voice. When possible, help the students label their emotion. A word of caution: when a child has escalated into big emotions, make sure everyone is safe in the room Then give that child time to settle and say something like, "Let me know when you're ready," before attempting to address the issue. Establishing expectations is the first step. We cannot assume they know appropriate school behavior. Most do not. Think of your classroom. Do you have a set of expectations for display? If so, good for you. If not, consider including your students when creating the class rules or a set of expectations or even a class promise. We can involve our kiddos in a conversation about the expectations regarding their physical safety, respect for others, effort, and care for our classroom. Decide on a list of 3 to 5. Phrase them clearly and concisely, and then post them for all to see. Examples could include: be kind to myself and others, respect our classroom, try my best. We can use this process for just about anything, like what a calm body looks like, or how to sit on the carpet, stand in line, walk down the hall, what ready to learn looks like, and staying on task. Use visuals to remind them of the expectations. Refer to the list every day, even multiple times per day, until they're ingrained as part of the routine. And keep in mind that our kiddos will most likely need an extra reminder after a long weekend or a school break. When it comes to establishing expectations and correcting behavior, it's most effective to state your expectations in a positive way. For example, rather than saying "don't run," we can request that the students walk in the hall. And rather than saying "stop calling out," we can say "please raise your hand." This type of language is easier for children to process. It also creates a supportive environment where everyone focuses on what we want to see in the classroom. Establishing your attention-grabbing signals is another important part of class expectations. This is when you want students to immediately stop what they're doing and focus on you. There are so many ways to accomplish this. Here are a few. See if the ones you use are on the list. Flashing the classroom lights. Quiet hand signals like holding 2 fingers up in a peace sign. Sound effects like a bell or a soothing chime. Countdowns: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Call and response signals can be done in so many different ways, like saying "macaroni and cheese," and the kids chant back responding, "everybody freeze." Or you can call out and they respond with an action like "hands on top, everybody stop," and they stop what they're doing and put their hands on their heads. Getting our students' attention with these signals, it takes practice. So let's be sure to incorporate a little rehearsal into our day. While waiting for all to respond, we can praise those who are following directions by saying something like, "Wow, I see 12 people following directions. We're just waiting for 3 more." Transitions can also be challenging for our little ones, whether it's walking in and out of the classroom, from place to place within the room, or from activity to activity. Here are some proactive tips to reducing challenging behavior. Having a visual schedule to reference combined with daily routines can promote smooth transitions throughout the day. Visual timers like a sand timer or a digital countdown on the whiteboard can help our kiddos stay focused on a task and prepare them for transitions when used consistently. They can also create a really exciting challenge during cleanup time. When then statements can also help. When students are cleaned up, then we can go on the playground. Whenever possible, use poems, chants, or songs throughout the day. For example, there's a lineup chant on this slide. Modeling the actions and reciting this poem keeps their minds and mouths busy while moving. When children have a hard time, try some positive practice. This is when we practice the process again, and maybe even a third time, because we believe in their potential and know they can improve when they try. Preschoolers love the cause-effect process. If I do A, then my teacher does B. In most cases, providing behavior-specific praise can reinforce the behavior or increase the probability of it happening again. Genuine compliments also build rapport with students and serve as a cue for others. Avoid vague compliments like "good job," and be more specific like, "Wow, I like how you slowly walked over to the carpet and sat on your spot." Or, "Your group cleaned up those blocks so quickly and calmly. Very nice." For some students, you may need to acknowledge their effort or their progress in tiny increments. Writing that uppercase Z can be tricky, but you're getting better at it every day. Or, today you were able to recognize 3 letters. Good progress. We know some students are easier to compliment than others, so we have to make a conscious effort to acknowledge everyone. This is another opportunity to catch them being good. When a student is struggling and then shows appropriate behavior, provide praise immediately. Remember, we're also modeling how to treat others for the rest of the class. We talked about looking for patterns in behavior. Can you think of a specific time of day or transition that is difficult for a student, or even for the whole class? Another way to prevent challenging behavior is through pre-correction. When we expect problem behavior to occur, take the opportunity to remind the student or the class of the specific expected behavior before it happens. For example, the class has difficulty moving from the table to the carpet without chaos. First, explicitly state the behavior. Take time to practice. Then, before you signal for the transition, calmly remind the class, we're about to move to the carpet. Please walk slowly, keep your hands to yourself, and then sit on your assigned carpet square. In time, replace the verbal reminder with a nonverbal cue, like a gesture. This also works for a single student who is having trouble too. Rather than being frustrated with that student's behavior, make time for pre-correction. This could be a reminder to take turns or to share. Then when the child behaves appropriately, reinforce it with a smile, a thumbs up, or a compliment. Redirection is another proactive strategy to use just before the behavior repeats or escalates. The goal is to re-engage the child with an appropriate option while minimizing attention to challenging behavior. We can redirect student behavior in one of 4 ways: verbally redirecting the child to the acceptable or preferred behavior, physically redirecting a child in a different direction with a gentle touch, cueing, like using a hand gesture to signal what we want to see, and lastly, using proximal attention, or when we draw attention to another student who's behaving appropriately, such as, oh, look at how Mateo is cleaning up the kitchen area. Well done. Redirection minimizes challenging behaviors without derailing the lesson or activity. Consider redirection when a child is off task, misusing materials, calling out, or becoming upset. The National Center on Quality Teaching and Learning has some video examples of each on its website. Another way to increase positive student behavior is with incentives. Earlier, we mentioned the when-then statements. When you complete this, then you can do that. These statements are most effective when delivered in a positive, friendly way. But sometimes our kiddos need a little extra encouragement. Identifying exactly what each student likes will help, because incentives only work when the child wants to earn them. Find out what games, crafts, colors, toys, and snacks they enjoy. Feel free to use this QR code here to download this preference assessment sheet. Use one per student, but you can also make your own. It doesn't need to be fancy. Now, we can interview older students, but with the little ones, we may have to rely on our powers of observation or even caregiver feedback to find out what they like. And keep in mind, their preference will likely change as the school year progresses. In addition to individualized motivators, you can also create class-wide reward systems for positive behavior. Again, since our time is limited, here's a quick infographic to download a guide of what, why, and how to get this process started. Feel free to download this and share it with whoever you like. The last thing to remember is to have some fun. Preschool play has a purpose. Here are some games that also support positive behavior and social emotional learning. Red light, green light for listening, following directions, impulse control. When we add this game into our routine, then we can connect the learning to their classroom behavior. Try using the term red light in our classroom to describe challenging behaviors or poor habits. This adds a playful tone to correction in the classroom. Freeze Dance and Simon Says also focus on listening and impulse control. Board games and tic-tac-toe involve patience and taking turns and good sportsmanship. Relay races are a team-building activity that also incorporates social skills. The possibilities here are endless. Use different objects to reinforce classroom learning, colorful bean bags or letter cubes. Be creative. And don't forget to celebrate the progress you're making in the classroom. Planning something to look forward to can be motivating and exciting for everyone. This final slide has resources used for the presentation.